Welcome to the Disciples of Aquarius, and I know that y'all have been waiting for part two about the history of Aquarius and for more horror videos. But I think it's very important that we have this channel and this community of like-minded individuals and a conscious awakening community where like-minded people and people who are on the same wavelength come together, and that we have to, discuss the practical side of things, because I think that, as much fun it is to create all these horror videos and mystery videos and dissecting and analyzing the paranormal and all these things, I also think that we need to be practical with our approach to the world and how we move as, consciously awakened individuals, and how to practically move in this matrix, um, despite being the only ones aware. And those who know, they know. I don't know if I can pronounce the hantavirus without getting censored, but let's call it the H virus. Miss H virus is on the loose, and we have always thought that there will be another pandemic soon, because we had Miss Rona, which we can't also pronounce the full name of that, because we had Mrs. Rona, and she did what she did. And if you know who Miss Rona is, that's like the 19th virus, yeah. And they have done what they did, and we've experienced the lockdowns, we've experienced the demonstrations. We've seen it all and we've experienced it all. And if you're still alive, then, you held out, because a lot of people didn't survive that because it was a bioengineered weapon to depopulate humanity down to a specific number. But their numbers failed. That's why they eventually resorted to, human trafficking and all these other things to actually persevere people as human slaves. Because it's very difficult to control a mass of people if there's just so many of us. And that's just the truth. So with the new H virus, which I don't know if I can actually pronounce that on, the social media platform and whatnot, Miss H virus has been located in, several regions, but it made the headline here in the Netherlands that people have contracted these things, and now people are actually frightened because it has similar effects to, what we have experienced 100 years ago of the plague, what we have experienced with the plague. And now it's back, and there's a potential for another world lockdown. And they did the same stunt in January, where we thought, oh, help, we're going to be assassinated by this virus, this disease that is happening in India and now spreading through, the United Kingdom and whatnot. And eventually it didn't work. And they had multiple viruses, because they tried to do it with the monkeypox, they tried to do it with the measles, they tried to do it with all a bunch of these things. So we kind of also have to think like, they're using a bunch of scaring tactics and scare maneuvers in order to psychologically manipulate us, so that we're just controllable in that sense. So we have to dissect, the psychological horror they project onto us with the actual facts. But aside of that, I think it's also safe to say that we cannot and no longer trust the government. If you think that your local government, that your local system, that, the system that you work for, and with the Epstein files being released, and with all of these people in higher positions of power participating in all of it, if you think that these people are here to save you, then you're wrong. You're dead ass wrong. Let me say it like that. You're dead ass wrong. That's the number one thing. So if you still believe that it's a left and right issue, then you don't see the game. If you still believe that it's the left or is the right wing, then you don't see the game for what it truly is, and you're missing out on the facts. If you still believe it's about political parties, then you don't see the game and you don't know what you're actually dealing with. This is no longer about which political party has the best ideas, which political agenda can actually benefit me. This is about there are a tiny percentage of people who have the same ethnic background attached to the blue and white state. And I want y'all to use your thinking caps. What I mean by the blue and white state, that are in control of the world banks, the pharmaceutical industry, the entertainment industry, and all these industries that technically run our world, run the human civilization. I don't like the term civilized or civilization, because civilization, civil, is a military term, and they already say that, we're part of the militia. And here in the Netherlands, the fact that people are already, preparing for war to fight other people, their issues and whatnot, that alone should already tell you that it's going to get down like that, where we're just used as a bunch of minions, a bunch of these, useless cultural puppets to defend a country you cannot even participate in. And that's the truth. So we need to come up with a practical plan. I know I have tried this before with, a consciousness awakened community, but I think this is a different type of, state it is in right now, because if what they have done to us has been exposed to the public and the public doesn't really react to it, then we really need to figure this out and realize that there's only a small percentage of us that is awakened enough, but also sustainable enough to actually have resources to start an independent living. Thus, meaning have your own community building, buy land off grid, and live for yourself. Now, this is not a one-time thing or a 1, 2, 3 fix. But I need y'all to understand that this is something that is necessary if you want to survive this agenda, because I don't think that what they have coming up next to us is actually going to help us any further. I don't think so. I truly don't think so. I think we're heading for some dangerous times. I truly believe that. In order for an independent community to thrive or to actually have sustainable living and independent living, there are a few practical things that we need in order to survive and thrive. But I'm first going to start with, as an individual, because I think that's way easier. As an individual, if you can no longer rely on your job because the jobs are locked down, if you can no longer rely on the system because the system is down, then what can you do? What can you do? And like in a practical sense, let's take it back to the COVID pandemic. When only the shops are open, the supermarkets are open and whatnot, what can you do? The best thing you can invest in right now are a few things: digital products, technology, AI, medicine, food, engineering, science, and building. And what I mean by building, I mean physically building stuff: houses, cup homes, vehicles, mechanics, technology, healthcare, whatever. These are the best thing to actually, as an entrepreneur, as a polymath, to actually invest your time, energy, and effort into, by learning practical skills, learning skills that people have to pay money for, because the entire world is moving in such a way that we become dependent on technology. Can you build a phone? Can you code a phone? Can you fix laptops? Can you fix viruses? Can you do cybersecurity? Can you use AI automation for, video editing? Are you great at social media? Are you good at, social media content? Are you great at building vehicles? Are you great at mechanical engineering? Are you great at biomedical engineering? Can you, design and create, physically build a prosthetic arm or a device that can actually help people with their health and well-being? Can you cook? Can you cook for many people over and over again? These are practical things. Can you build a house? Can you build a shelter? These are practical things. Can you grow your own food? These are practical things that you need to think about, because the truth is, and the truth of the matter is that there are going to be a lot of things that are no longer going to matter in a few months. These things are no longer going to matter in a few months. So if you're not locked in, if you're not locked into the fact that the world as we know it is no longer going to be relevant or whatsoever, then you're just heading for a very, very, very difficult time. You're heading for a very difficult time. And if you still think that art and music and literature and theater or a lot of theoretical philosophical nonsense is going to save you, then I have, a thing for you. It doesn't. It won't. It doesn't, and it won't, because a lot of people become dependent on practical things. Can you build me a shelter? Can you build me, a device? Can you build me a car? Can you build me a physical tool I can use to hunt, to gather fish, to gather, animals or whatnot? Because there is a high likely potential that they want to merge us into this transhumanistic dystopian future, and that a lot of us have to actually go back to primitive ways of living and combine, primitive way of surviving with high-end cyber technology. And we have to educate ourselves in our practical skills in order to help other people who have money to invest in our assets, so we can help them through our services and products get the money and build stuff for ourselves. Because this society is going to force you to become an entrepreneur whether you want it or not. Because with the agenda that they have for us, you need to grow your own food, you need to build your own house, you need to clean your own water, and you also have to raise your own children in a way outside of the system. Meaning that if you have children, you have to deregister your children outside of this system after you have built your own income and system independently from the state, from the system, and have some land, have some land. So you need to look at, where can I buy land that is not so attached to a governmental system, where I can just run my own stuff, run my own system, run my own land, and raise my children the way that I want to, and create what I want to create without being disturbed. On a financial level, you need to have multiple sources of income, because the one income household story is no longer going to do it. If you have to temporarily get a job to pay off some debt so you can actually be free, go do that. But it's going to force you to be an entrepreneur, and you have to learn how to be an entrepreneur. And that means that you have to learn what sells, what doesn't sell. What do people want? What do people need? What are the problems people are facing, and what can I create that people are willing to invest their money into to have that solution? And this can be knowledge. People pay a lot of money for knowledge, how to fix X, Y, and Z, how to do X, Y, and Z. So we're going to get into teaching people, and after every class, whatnot, you charge them for the information that you can give them, or for your ebooks, because it's way easier to just download a book anyways than to physically copy. You know what I'm saying? Ebooks, one-on-one training, start your own Skillshare. Start your own program where people have to pay, a good amount of money to learn a highly valuable skill that you have been able to learn all by yourself. So that's one way of income. And if you have like a niche, then learn how to monetize that by creating content for behind the scenes, and use a Patreon account that if people are really engaged in the content that you're creating, that you also have exclusive content about that content on a Patreon that people can pay for between $5 and $15. And if you have, let's say, 100 people interested in exclusive content, because on the exclusive content, if they're subscribed, they can also get like, a discount to your products, which they actually need because it solves a problem for them, then you can actually gain double money. You get the money from them being a subscriptor, having a subscription, and you gain money for being able to sell your product that is actually going to fix their problem. And then you have to determine, in what kind of niche that is. So this is like basic entrepreneurship and an entrepreneurial thinking. What are the issues that people are actually struggling with every single day that I can invent a solution for their issue? This is just the basics of entrepreneurship in general. People have issues and they need a solution. What can I do and create that people are willing to invest their money into me, because what I deliver, my services, my products, is able to solve a problem. Now, once you have the money and the income, the second thing that you actually need to focus on is, the land. Where I'm going to buy some land. There are some websites like freedomofgovernment.org where you can buy your own land and pick out locations where you actually want to reside. And building land, if you're practical about this, it's not going to be easy. And you really have to decide, what type of land do you actually want to build. Practically seeing, you are going to live in a tent for a while because you need to dug out a land, design an interior, like an exterior design of a house or a building or a car building made from wood and clay and all these things. But then you also have to learn about, using a generator for your electricity. And when you have electricity, then you can actually, start thinking about, your Wi-Fi and internet and all these things. Other than that, you also have to think about, how do I structure my house against, let's say, wildfires, let's say storms, rains, snow, cold. Can it isolate the heat and all these things? So you have to think about these things and think about, okay, how do I build these things? How do I build these infrastructures? So now we're getting into engineering. We're getting into constructing. We're getting into physically building a house. How do we do that? How do you do that? And how can you actually lay the physical foundation to actually generate electricity inside of these wires? So these wires, direct that electricity into all these pipelines or whatnot, so you can have light, you can have a heater, you can have all these things. And then physically you also have to realize, like, okay, I need to have a door, I need to have windows, I need to have a bed, I need to have a bathroom. How am I going to, create a bathroom where I can, defecate and do all these things and, take care of myself properly, like my utilities? Because where your feces going to go? Because you cannot just, squat shit in a hole and let it be done, because that doesn't work. It needs to go somewhere, and something needs to happen with your defecation, because your defecation, you can use that as a fuel, because your own feces can literally produce gas, and that gas can generate into heat for your heater. It may not smell the nicest, but that's where you always have like an aroma and whatnot. But these are the practical things that you need to think about, how to actually physically build land with the money that I've generated from my businesses, so I can build my own building on the land that I've bought, build our own house, or get a community of builders and, home builders and whatnot, and let them do it for you and learn from them, because they are actually educated and skilled to do these things. Because it takes craftsmanship to build a house. It's hard work. It's not something you can just sit back and intellectualize about. It's about, you need to get your arms up and you need to build. And when it's about, sofas and whatnot, you can always use, wood and planks and cushions and stuff with feathers and all these things. Those are simple things. Making a table is something that's very, very simple to do, very easy to do. But the infrastructure of, let's say, water, electricity, gas, and, the entire electrical and mechanical engineering behind that, that can be very difficult to do. But if you learn these skills, you can actually do that. So then we have the physical infrastructure with the financial infrastructure, which is both funding them. Now, the psychological part, the emotional and mental department of sustainable independent living is to emotionally detach yourself from needing external validation from society in a whole. You're not going to be understood. You're not going to be accepted. You're not going to be welcomed. You're not going to be loved, appreciated, for whatever reason. And if you're just like me, a outsider, a neurodivergent or whatnot, you never really had an emotional bond with society, with belonging in general. You never belonged anywhere. So you don't really miss out on anything, because for you the term belonging simply does not exist. At its best, it's a, fantasy, how should I say this nicely? A fantasy concept that helps you sleep at night. So emotionally, you have to deal with, the fear of failure, because it's not about that you're going to fail. You are going to fail, but failure is not the end. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's just one step towards success. Shame. Other people are living already in built houses for them, and I'm here building my own, and it may not be as grandiose and beautiful like all these structured houses and whatnot, but with time it all will all be all right. Guilt. Did I do something wrong? Is it my fault that I'm not able to participate? Did I do something wrong? Fear, guilt, and shame, those are the three pillars of the matrix to keep you attached to this third reality, this, 3D dimension. That's what it's built upon. If you can handle with these feelings and, gain a feeling of self-confidence and self-acceptance and self-love, then you are able to move on to the mental state, which is actually about the identity stage. Because the mental has to deal with the cognitive awareness of our daily reality. This is logic, reasoning, analytics. People always say like mental health, but what they actually refer to is emotional health. Because when it's about mental health, it's about, are you mentally clear to think in patterns, to think in systems in order to actually achieve something. So this is more about cognitive entrainment and training your cognition to sharpen your long and short-term memory, your mathematical skills, your arithmetic skills, all these things in order to actually physically execute what you're mentally planning. You can train this by simply learning every single day and studying. You're a lifelong student. You are never done learning anything. Spiritually, this is something that's very interesting because people really have to, um, you know, do whatever they need to do for them or work spiritually. Everyone has a different type of spirituality. If you're still attached to the Abrahamic faiths, okay, you do you. If you're into Ifa, you do you. If you're into hoodoo, you got to do what you got to do with the hoodoo. You know what I'm saying? If you have your own spiritual mechanisms and own spiritual systems, it's very important that in this time that you take care of your spiritual well-being, because the spiritual warfare that is happening and then manifesting in the physical realm, the moment you see it, it sees you. You know, that's something that I've learned in my occult practices. If you're dealing with, let's say spirits and whatnot, the moment you can see them, they can see you. So if you're vibrating on a higher level of consciousness due to your, independence and independent way of thinking and being and whatnot, and you want to spiritually protect yourself, because the more you rise in your consciousness awareness, the more you tend to attract energies and entities that may have the intention to harm you any type of way. It's very important that you actually spiritually protect yourself against all these entities. So whatever it looks like for you, you got to do what you got to do to spiritually protect yourself, because it's very easy to be hijacked. It's very easy to be hacked. It's very easy to be manipulated or get possessed by something that you actually don't really want to get into. It's very easy these days. Psychological manipulation is very easy these days, because the war really is on the mind. The war is on the mind because they have, orchestrated so many systems, thousands of systems, and they've invested a ton of money in order for you to stay a mental slave. Stay mentally, a slave. A slave to outdated systems, a slave to outdated regimes, a slave to outdated ideologies that no longer work or is no longer relevant and only relevant for them. That's what they have done. And there's nothing more satisfying than being able to have your own money and have a mind of your own and just be an independent individual. Be an independent individual, but also understand and realize that it's going to be lonely. It's going to be lonely at first if you build your own land and you have your own land somewhere in a foreign country, and also with the reality that you may not go back to the country that you actually used to come from due to actually, having an independent life for yourself. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that on a social level, you may not click with family anymore, and you may not ever see your family ever back again. And the person that you used to be in the past is no longer the person that you can carry into this new reality of independent living to actually deal, with the many attacks. Because we also got to realize that the attacks are not, only spiritual, they're physical as well. So you got to get the guns. You got to get the guns. You got to know how to build a gun or build a weapon, build a bomb. And that's not me promoting violence, but it is me promoting self-defense and whatnot, which is a legal right inside of this system. In order to actually, protect yourself, take care of yourself, and know what to do when danger strikes. That's very important. That's very important. So know how to defend yourself in any ways necessary that you need to in order to feel safe on your new land. Now, if a single person can do this, then building a community with like-minded people who are also invested and interested in this is actually very easy, because you're no longer going to be attracted to the shallow ends of the world and whatnot, and you're going to create content and project more of a new energy through the algorithm that you post to see like-minded individuals who are also interested in sustainable living and sustainable independent ways of taking care of yourself in the community. And if you have, let's say, a community of 10 people who can come together and build something meaningful, then you can already start a new lineage of just highly independent people who are free from the system. And we know how people evolve and get babies with intercourse and all these things, and then you let your children grow up in all these independent communities with hybrid technologies and sustainable way of independent living, and everything goes so forward and whatnot. And that's actually just how we create a new and better society to prevent being a victim to Agenda 30 that is happening right now, because now we're in 2026. We're in 2026, and we started with the COVID pandemic, then we had the Epstein files, then we had the Ukraine and Russian war, then we had the Iran and Palestine and the Israel war, then we had the Epstein files, then we had the P. Diddy case, and then we had the inflation and the petroleum and all these, world crises that are happening onto this planet. And you cannot just trust the system anymore, because the system doesn't work for you, it works against you. That's just what it is. And they can sense, smell, and notice anyone who's actually an independent thinker, thinks for him or herself, and it will do anything it can to actually make sure that you stay inside of the system. Because this system is built for you to slip. It's not easy. You're not meant to win. You are meant to lose. And by losing is actually making a misstep and staying down. And that's the worst kind of position you can be in. Staying down is a very, very dangerous position to be in. By staying down, staying put. Get up. You need to learn how to get up after any type of misfortune happens. Something bad happened, okay, get up. Get up. Don't stay down too long. Don't linger about it. Process it emotionally, cry, scream, yell, whatever you need to do, and then move on. Move on. If there's one thing that I regret what I have done, is that I took an L and I stayed down far too long, and that fucked me up. I'm going to make more videos about sustainable living and building a community together, because with this new virus outbreak, we're going to analyze this even further on my Patreon channel. But I do want to actually have a practical video onto the Disciples of Aquarius, the D.O.A channel, for actual accurate information. So if you like this content and you like what we're actually discussing and building here, this community over the paranormal, the mysteries of life, and consciousness awakening and sustainable living, then you can subscribe to my Patreon for $5 a month, where you can get exclusive content over more horror videos, more analysis videos about top horror, top mysterious videos found on the internet, and about videos about consciousness awakening and how to actually, build sustainable living for oneself.